There's nothing that I can say or do, and it seems that words won't change a lot. How can I make it through to you when these silly little words are all that I've got? We can try to just pretend I could hold you once again, 'cause I'm scared of feeling lost tonight. When I wake up, it's you that I think of. It's true, it's so obvious, but I'm holding back because you don't want me like I want you. You don't feel me like I feel you. Oh no. And I must confess that you don't touch me like I touch you. Never blush, baby, when I kiss you, but you don't. And I must confess that I wish I'd find someone new and forget about you. 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 There's only so much that we can save, like a storyline and a few cliches. When we break up, it's true that I'm making up this through. I don't wanna pass the buck, but we're in this place because you don't want me like I want you. You don't feel me like I feel you. Oh no. And I must confess that you don't touch me like I touch you. Never blush, baby, when I kiss you. You don't. And I must confess that I wish I'd find someone new. You're the sweetest love I ever had, and missing that is why I feel so sad. I've been holding on in case there was something we could fix, but it's over now. Yeah, it's all over now. Touch you, never blush, baby, when I kiss you. You don't, and I must confess that I wish I'd find someone new and forget about you.
Time goes by and yet I wonder, are you and me still the same? Are you still loving the game? I know I don't. You cast your spell and I went under. I know the laughter and the pain. Will I ever love again? I don't know if I can take it anymore. So I stay here and hold my heart when you walk out the door. Made a promise to myself and I repeat it in my head. Set your mind free. Set your mind free. No one knows what I've been through, but this is the end of me and you. Set your mind free. Made a promise to myself, this time I will keep it. Where there's a will, yeah, there's a way. With every smile, with every tear, I know I will make it. I'm gonna see a brighter day. Oh, 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 oh. A brighter day, a brighter day. Oh.
Welcome to the only show bringing cops and the community together for some real talk and some real listening. This is uncut. This is uncensored. This is Black and Blue Live. Hey, what up, fam? Welcome to Black and Blue Live, where cops and community come together for some real talk and some real listening. My name is Dale, just like it says right there in the banner right there. Thank you for coming to the show. Hey, I appreciate you guys. It's been a minute since I've done this. I've been, traveling the East Coast. It is summer and all that, but it's time to get back to work. And we got a real good one for you here today, talking about a serious topic. But hopefully you guys are all watching and having a good Sunday. Back to work tomorrow. I'm out here on the West Coast, out here in the LA area, and we were reaching like triple digits for the past week. I know you're like boo-hoo, whatever, but hey, we finally got a break in that weather. It's like in the 80s today, so I'm feeling that. But hey, everybody, please make sure you spread the word about the show and like us on all the platforms that we are broadcasting on today. We're on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, so that's where we are broadcasting today. Hopefully you like the show and tell everybody a little bit about it. Today's show is a good one. Today we're going to talk about September is National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. And we got some people on the show today to talk a little bit about that. And we'll get to that. So let me bring them on. Without further ado, let's do it. All right. So the first guest here is a sergeant with the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania Sheriff's Office. Everyone, please help me welcome to the show, Sergeant Jatara Taylor. How you doing?
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. And I told everybody there in that intro a little bit about what's going on here in the LA area. So we got a break in the weather. So what's the weather like out there in Philly?
It is rainy. Rainy.
Okay. Hey, we need the weather. We need the rain out here. So bring some of it this way. Yeah. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do out there.
Sure, so I go by Taylor. I am a deputy sheriff sergeant with the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office. I have been in law enforcement for the past 9 years. I've also, over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, at-risk youth, and most recently working with different agencies providing information about suicide awareness.
All right. Yes. And you got some stories to tell about that, and we'll definitely get into that. And thank you for coming to the show. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Next guest here is a senior corporal with the Dallas, Texas Police Department out there in the great state of Texas. Everyone, please help us. Welcome to the show, Corporal DeMarcus Black.
All right.
Oh, wrong button. The kids in the back, there they go. The kids in the back, they were like, "Hey, Dale, you push that button." Yeah, they messing me up over here. How you doing, bro?
Hey, I'm good, Dale. How you doing? I want to say go Cowboys to get it started. Go Cowboys.
Oh, no, please. I thought we were going to start off the show on a good note. Come on, man. Come on.
It's always a good note. Like
it's always
Dale.
a good note. Yeah. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do out there.
My name is DeMarcus Black, born and raised here in the city of Dallas. I've been with the police department for 25 years. I've done patrol. I've been a detective. I spent 8 years in the media relations, public information office. I worked at the front desk and facilities management, and now I'm in a new unit we just started here called the Wellness Unit, which is an extension of a program we had with peer support. And what we do is we look out for the welfare of officers and also our non-sworn employees that deal with critical incidents, not just at work, but things also at home and in life.
All right. We'll definitely talk about all that information here today. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next guest here is formerly with the Tempe, Arizona Police Department. She is now retired and living a good life. Everyone, please help us welcome to the show, Lindsay McCall Long. How you doing, Lindsay?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Excellent. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what's going on out there in Arizona.
Well, one is still hot. It's the desert. So, but it is under 100, so that's a cool day for us. So I will take that.
What?
Um, so, like you said, I'm retired from Tempe PD. I retired about 2 years ago now, and I know sometimes people are like, "Retired? You're a little young for that." But I'm medically retired. 2018, my partner and I were involved in a shooting. I was shot 3 times. She was shot once. My injuries didn't heal up well enough to go back to work. So I'm grateful to be able to be home with my kids, which is great. I love them, even though they drive me crazy. But I was on the peer support team at my department. And so I continue volunteering to do peer support. I've had the pleasure of helping to teach de-escalation classes and also a PTSD and trauma class as well.
And we saw one of your babies back there trying to get it, trying to get some of her shine
Always
behind mama.
trying to get into action.
It's all good. It's all fam here. I appreciate you coming on
Yeah.
again.
Thank you.
All right. And last but not least, he's formerly with the Sacramento, California Police Department. He is now also retired as well. Please help us welcome to the show, Dr. Obed Magni. What's going on, brother? How you feeling?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
I'm great. Hanging in there, man. Just trying to get through this Sunday, and Monday comes tomorrow. How about everything with you? I know I said that you were formerly with Sacramento, but you are no longer in Sacramento. Where are you at now? What are you doing?
I'm in the beautiful area that we call Las Vegas, aka Sin City. So I've been here for, yeah, I know it's tough, man. Tough life. I got to live here. Somebody's got to do it, right? But I've been here for almost a year. So, it's been great. I'm blessed. I spent 17 years with the Sacramento Police Department, worked in patrol. I was our policy guy for a couple of years, working in professional standards. I was a school resource officer, worked various units within the organization in my nearly 2 decades there. You'll see that I obviously have a prefix in front of my first name. I have a doctorate degree in organizational leadership, where I did my dissertation on job satisfaction with police officers. And so since then, I've gone on to do some other things where I'm a fellow with the National Policing Institute, National Institute of Justice Lead Scholar. My area of expertise in love, passion is obviously with wellness, officer wellness, motivation, job satisfaction, morale. And obviously, this topic that we're talking about here, especially when we're talking about trauma, very, very near and dear to my heart. So I'm privileged and blessed to be here amongst all of you guys here today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. We're going to chop it up with some good, heavy topics today. We'll also keep it light, too, and everybody will be engaged. So, hey, let's do this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure everyone else knows before we get into our topic today that today is also 9/11, and on that fateful day over 20 years ago, something terrible happened in the city of New York that affected all of us, and I just want to give us a moment of silence in recognition to that. So let's just do that real quick. All right, thank you everybody for that. Where was everybody at on 9/11? I'm sure, does everyone remember? I remember where I was. I was doing some training in Georgia at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center down there, and they locked us down. That was a crazy day. So, yeah, does everyone kind of remember where they were when 9/11 happened, when they got word of that? Yeah.
I was in high school.
Myself.
Go ahead, Jatara.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I was in high school. I was actually in the 9th grade. We were in the cafeteria. They started showing things on the news, and everybody was just trying to figure everything out. So it was definitely a scary moment for everybody.
Yeah. Yep. DeMarcus, you about to say?
Well, at the time, I was a young officer, and I was at our headquarters building in an appeal hearing for an accident that I had. And I remember, yeah, I know, man. I remember I was in the actual room, and you heard the officer come running by. A plane has hit the towers, and then a little time goes back by, and oh my God, a plane hit the second tower, and then you start seeing all the rank, start running around. Next thing you know, they tell everybody to head to their stations, and so then we began, all the extra patrols and stuff around some of our target areas in the city. So that's what I remember that day. It was a summer day, looking up in the sky, a little later, and
Yeah,
there's no planes, there's nothing, and all the people that lost their lives, and man, it was just something, man. It's tough.
yeah.
But
That was a crazy day. What about you, Lindsay
yeah.
and Obed? You guys remember?
I I was in college. I was at Georgia State, and I woke up to my mom screaming actually about the first tower being hit. And as I woke up and I turned on the TV that was on the dresser at the end of my bed, that's when I saw the second tower get hit. And she was running around frantic because the CDC is in Atlanta, and she just knew that was going to be next. And so that's what I always remember about that day. And obviously, we didn't go to school that day. I think they locked down Atlanta for like the rest of the week. We didn't even have classes, and so that's definitely something that's always seared in my memory for sure.
Yep. Obed.
So I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. That's where I spent obviously most of my adult life before moving to California. And I was working in East Boston. And for those who don't know, Logan Airport in Boston is in East Boston. And yeah, I remember I was working at Eagle Global Logistics. It was one of my first jobs out of college. It was like a temp job, and I was just kind of frozen because like it wasn't real. You know what I mean? It's just like, what do you mean towers are getting hit by airplanes? Like this don't even make no sense.
Yep.
And I know that Corporal Black brought it up, but I just remember the eeriness, mind you. Again, when you're working near an airport and there's no traffic in broad daylight, and the only thing you see are F-16s flying around, like it was just some kind of dystopian, I don't know, feeling. It just wasn't real. But I do remember that and just seeing and just being in shock.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm sure there's a bunch of trauma in the aftermath of that. Suicidal thoughts coming from that, from some of the survivors after that. So we'll definitely get into that. But before we do that, hey, let's talk about some of the people that have already logged on. Looks like Lindsay, you've got you got some people here, some fan base here from Linda Lou says, that's
Oh
my baby,
Lord,
Lindsay McCall Long. So incredibly proud of her. And
that's my mama.
that's your mama. Okay, as she should be. We also got a Shantae Craig says, so proud of you, Lindsay. And then is that Toya Sanford says, yes, Lindsay. So we got the Lindsay fan club in the building.
Appreciate it.
Yes, we all do. We all do. So, yeah. So, like I said, this topic today is going to be about suicide awareness and prevention. This is a heady topic. This is near and dear to my heart because I've had someone close to me that let me see if I can get some of this up already. That was dealing with that. So let me bring up his picture here. Right there on the far left, you see your boy in high school graduation right there. That's me. And next to me is my boy, my best friend, Tracy Newman. And he went on to be a deputy sheriff with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. That's him and I right there at his graduation. And he passed away, self-inflicted gunshot wound back in the early 90s. So this is near and dear to me. And a bunch of what we're talking about today is because this is, I was young, my early 20s. And these are just things that guys don't really talk about that, it's kind of okay to talk about today. If maybe I would have seen some of those signs back then and reached out to him, some of these were obvious signs back then. But guys being guys, being machismo and all that. We didn't talk about those sorts of things back then. But I'm glad those sorts of things have changed, and that's kind of what we'll talk about here today. Jatara, you've got a similar story.
I do. So one of my best friends, his name was Dante Austin. He was also a sheriff with the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office. He actually died by suicide June 7th of 2019. It was something that was totally unexpected. As you can see in this picture right there, we were like the dynamic duo. So you see one, you see the other one. I always tell the story of how we literally went from clearing houses in the academy to clearing houses on the street. Because with every promotion, we got promoted together. So that was definitely like my backbone. Austin, he was an advocate in the community. He loved his family as well as his friends. And overall, he was just a good soul. But what I always tell people is we never think that it would be one of our strongest friends. So one thing I do want to say is make sure you check on your strong friends. I feel like when we talk about things like depression, it's some people we can obviously see depression in based off of different signs and symptoms, but there's other people out here who are also dealing with depression and you just can't see it. So for somebody who's always outgoing, always upbeat, he was also in school. He had just graduated with his bachelor's degree and was going for his master's degree. So it's people who you would never think would do something like that. So I think it's really important as we step into Suicide Awareness Month to really know the warning signs. I feel like if I knew the warning signs now, it would have been a little bit easier for me to, reach out and say, hey, what can I do for you? Or maybe just getting the necessary resources for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you hit it in the head right there when you said it's the strong people that you don't think would be having those sorts of thoughts. My boy Tracy was a tall, good-looking brother, life of the party. Everyone loved Tracy, but he was going through some things, obviously, in his personal life. He wouldn't show up a couple times. I remember one time he lived in the city of Burbank when he worked for the sheriff's department, and Burbank PD came to my house one day because he didn't show up to work, and in the middle of the night, do you know where Tracy is? And no, it's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So just signs like that where it would come up, and if I would have known those signs or acted upon those signs, maybe things would have been different. So us as in law enforcement, is there, I know we kind of deal with these sorts of incidents on a daily basis. Is there some sort of specialized training that each of us has gone through? Is that something that they just kind of teach you at the academy and you just kind of learn on the job how to deal with people in some sort of crisis? What's going on with that? We'll start with anybody.
So I remember a few years ago, well, this is prior to my retirement actually, sitting in a crisis intervention team training. And, that's when we talk about mental illness, whatever resources are in your area. But I remember sitting there thinking, this is great training, but this is for the public, right? And where do we have this type of training for us as the first responders? Because I was sitting there thinking a lot of the symptoms and behaviors that we were talking about that people would exhibit, whether they were suicidal or depressed or had PTSD, I knew people that were probably sitting right next to me that were dealing with a lot of the same things. And then over time, I ended up taking a couple of other courses, like I think it's International Crisis. Oh, I'm going to mess it up, but it's ICISF. It's a 40-hour training that you can take on crisis intervention, even debriefing critical incidents or even natural disasters, which really opened my eyes. And there's a lot of different companies that give a lot of different presentation certifications in this. So we know what to look for in each other. Just like Jatara was saying, we don't look at the strongest person, and we also take on that superhero persona of, well, I signed up for the job and I should be able to take it. But I remind people that superheroes have very tragic origin stories and their weaknesses don't take much. And we've got to stop putting that cape on in that way. You know what I mean? It's great to want to feel like a hero and be seen as such, but we have to remember that we are humans who wear uniforms at the end of the day. Our uniform doesn't take everything that happens to us. So there is a lot more training out there than probably when a lot of us started. And depending on where you are in the country too, that conversation happens a lot more. But, you know, as some of you all know from traveling and doing presentations in different places, it's you know, it's definitely regional.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead, Obed.
and just to add on to that, there's like CIT training, crisis intervention team training, 40 hours that is available, to a lot of agencies across the country. And an inconvenient truth that unfortunately we have to talk about is that it's not mandatory across police departments, in this country. You'll have some police departments, some that I've, done work with or worked in partnership with. They have no form of, crisis intervention training internally or externally. And if you ask them, hey, let's say you're having a hard time, like, what's the remedy for that? And they'll tell you, well, there's this like 800 number they tell us to call sometime, and then that's it. So very, very often in-house in many agencies, there's almost no resources for people working inside those organizations. And that has to change. We can't talk about, in this country, hey, we got to make sure that, officer wellness is taken seriously, but we don't put our money where our mouth is when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. So just wanted to add that out there.
And
Yep.
yeah, and to go to that, I can remember back when I first started, and this was so real to me when I came on. When I was working and we lost our first officer, that I worked with that died in the line of duty. And I just remember after the news comes out that this officer who you just seen about an hour ago on a call is deceased. And the next thing that you hear on the radio is 336 take the disturbance on Malcolm X Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's over. And that was it. And I remember a young lady standing in the middle of the station like, does anyone care? We just lost somebody. No one said anything. Kind of looked around, gave her a hug, and that was it. But I'm so glad that today that as time goes on, as you learn more and you come to understand that, after you've seen that a few times, that might affect that person. We can add to like suicide ideation and all type of things, problems at home, problems at work, but your work performance at work, how you treat citizens at work. And so I'm very happy here how we started our wellness unit here. And our chief Garcia, he backs this program to the T and putting money where the mouth is. We're constantly in training. We're always looking for new training. We just completed one mental health first aid USA for mental well-being. The state of Texas has a peer support group across the state of Texas. We have an app where anyone across the state can reach out to officers anytime that they need to talk to someone or be counseling. Here at this department, we have a 60 officer deal with one of our foundations, one of our associations, not to mention our own peer support. And here we have a in-house clinician. Her name is Dee Dee Thornton. She's actually a Dallas police officer who I worked with for years. And I just call out on calls. I said, this is a Dee Dee's fault. She's always been that way. So she went and got her licensing and all that stuff like that. And she continues that not only with just people in the community, with officers every day. And we're based on strict confidentiality. Anyone can come to us and talk to us. And it's no way to sign confidentiality clauses and all that stuff. And that's key. And we do checkpoints on officers that are involved in critical incidents. And it was so exciting for me to, when I would call young officers, man, that was pretty gruesome scene that you guys went out to. Are you okay? Even if they tell me they're okay, they say, man, thank you for calling and checking on us, man. We appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And I had one guy even tell me, he said, well, I'm good today, but statistically down the road, after you see so many of these, this is a young officer. And I'm like, man.
Yep.
And to my surprise, because the old veterans getting the same thing, I have not had any negative feedback, which shows that people are understanding and they're starting to get it now. And like I say, when we go out, we
Mhm.
talk about the program, talk the details and stuff. I said, if you're well mentally, also well physically, if you're overall well, that's the better you can go out there and do your job, and the better you can treat the citizens. And I talked to a Citizens Police Academy, and they can appreciate that too. And they were just so happy to hear about that as well. And I think in the end, everyone benefits. And I'm just glad, like I said,
Mhm.
we're lucky here because he really backs the wellness program. He really does.
That's what's up. That's what's
I
up.
just want
And,
to, I'm sorry, I want to add to that really fast. So when I started the academy was back in 2013, and I remember our mental health class, which was really like half a day where they talked about mental health, and I always kept saying, like, this isn't enough. Because the reality is, once you get put on the street, and this is more so, I guess, for police officers, because our sheriff's office does mostly court related stuff. But when you get on the street and you're observing all these different incidents, very traumatic incidents, and I'm sure Lindsay could probably attest to the amount of people who are currently walking around with PTSD as law enforcement officers. But I started my own initiative called Breathe, Stretch, Shake, and Mental Health. And I created that initiative right after my best friend passed away. And the purpose of that initiative is really to give law enforcement officers a platform to be able to come in and have an open dialogue about mental health. The first hour, we have that open conversation, and then that second half, we decompress. Because, like you mentioned earlier, Dell, this is a very heavy topic. And every time I go on different platforms, that's one of the things I mention. This is a heavy topic, and if you need to remove yourself, I encourage you to do that because at any time, especially with me, grief just has this weird way of showing up. So one minute I can be absolutely okay, and then the next minute it's like somebody has kicked the wind out of me. And it's really, really important for those of you who aren't getting the training that you need to actually go out and get your training on your own. A lot of training that I have taken has been on my own time, not through the office, but ensuring that I have the necessary information to be able to not just save my officers, but anybody who I happen to come in contact with. One of the things that I always say is that I am more personal than I am professional. And not to get it twisted that I'm not professional, it's just that I like to know how my officers are feeling when they come in. Hey, how's your wife? How are the kids? Because that moment that you ask them a question that you normally get an answer to, and now the answer is different, now it's getting me to start asking other questions. Are you okay? Do you need my help? Is there anything that you need? And my officers know that at any given time that they can come to me and have those conversations without those conversations going to everybody else. So when Corporal Black, when you mention confidentiality, it is an absolute must when we talk about mental health because that's why a lot of people aren't speaking up. They're afraid that you will tell this person and that person, your mama, your cousin, your sister. So that's really important.
yep. And before we move along, real quick, I know we were talking about the Lindsay team, but we got the we got the Jatara team in the building as well. So real talk with Risa Monroe says Philly, hey, best friend Taylor. We also got Naveen CTV says Team Lindsay. So we more Lindsay. We also, of course, we're gonna have more
My
Lindsay.
cousin.
Yeah.
It's a family reunion.
Yes. What up, Bird? Thanks for tuning in to see my baby. So I guess Mama's telling Bird that. But we also got on YouTube. A tight Jen says Sergeant Taylor fan club here. So we got them all here. We got some more here. We got on Facebook. Diana Thornton says with Dallas PD. Dee Thornton. That's who you were
Yeah,
talking about there.
that's a DD call. Yes, sir.
That
Hey,
is Dee.
hey,
So yeah, keep the comments going. We also got another comment again from Gene's retired police and active Philly sheriff's officer here. So hello all. We appreciate all of the support here. So we were all talking about training that we've gone through as law enforcement officers, responding to these calls, talking to people that are in mental crises. Does anyone have any success stories of actually going out to a call or someone that you've helped or you've been on a call with someone else that was helping someone through a mental crisis, having ideations of suicide, and you actually helped them get through it. Any stories, real life stories?
Well, I'll just say, just from my time in patrol, I mean, I think the answer is like there've been countless times where we've helped
Mm-hmm.
people in crisis, and I love the question, but I kind of have a different spin on how to measure that success. And we've all heard the expression "no news is good news," right? There's some people that we've probably helped, off the ledge, and we didn't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's talking to a friend, whether it's talking to somebody on a call for service, uh,
Mm-hmm.
we grossly underestimate how much power we have when it comes to influence and helping other people. I tell people all the time, I have no shame in saying this out in public, and I'll say it out in public again. I have sought therapy. Okay, I have sought therapy, and it was one of the best things I could have done for myself. I love my therapist. Okay, and if we're gonna talk about a success story, let me give her a shout out. I am definitely not immune to some of the traumas and stress that we all deal with. Inside the profession, being black and blue, and some of the other nuances that are involved, with the profession. So, I don't have a story of me, being on the bridge and I'm talking to somebody and then they came on the other side of the bridge. Nothing specific like that. But I do want to give us a lot more credit than we tend to give ourselves, because you just might be going to a call for service. You just might be talking to somebody, and just being there for them is more than enough in many cases. So I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to say that.
Absolutely. Just like Real Talk with Reese Monroe says, mental health care is self-care and self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what he was saying about just that quick check-in. I mean, because sometimes you don't even realize just your words, how your words can affect somebody, and the corporal and the sergeant were saying earlier, just about having that conversation and like letting somebody know that you see them. Like that's huge
Mhm.
right there. Because any of us that have worked the street, people want to be validated on calls. They're not just calling us to call us. They want to be seen, they want to be heard. And it's the same thing when you're helping somebody. And sometimes, you know, that help isn't prevalent right in that moment. But I've had conversations with people down the line that said, you know what? You sent me a text message one time just to say hello. And I was at a super, super low point at that time. You don't even know what that text message meant to me. And this is like a year or two after it happened. We just got into a conversation about something else. And they said, I needed that so much at that point. And when I got that text, I knew that there was something else out there for me. I knew that there was help that I needed to get. And, I often remind people, when we check in with people, don't just like superficially check in. If I say, what's up, Dale, over my shoulder as I walk past you in the precinct, well, my body language isn't saying that I really care about what's going on with you. But if I stop and say, hey, Dale, how you doing today? And just like, the sergeant was saying, if that answer varies from how I know we communicate with each other,
Mhm.
well, then I'm gonna be quiet and I'm gonna let you fill that space. Because I had somebody do that for me the morning of my shooting. A friend of mine noticed I hadn't been at work for a couple of days, and she asked me, "How are you doing?" And then she leaned up against the wall, and I was like, "Oh, this is awkward." So now you feel like you have to answer, and I was able to answer her question. I unloaded on her about what was going on with me at that time that only one other person knew about. I was dealing with some stuff and I didn't come to work behind it for 2 days. And I thank her often for that because that was at the beginning of my shift. 6 hours later, she hears me getting shot on the radio.
Mhm.
And I told her that conversation quite possibly saved my life because I got to get all of that mess off of my chest and out of my brain so that I can focus on what I was there to do that day. So little things like that can go a long, long way. It doesn't have to be something huge and newsworthy. It's just, hey, how y'all doing today? Like let's talk about it.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
one thing I want to mention with I'm sorry, Dell, when we're checking in, We're quick to get on our phones and send text messages. Hey, how you doing? You can't see how I'm doing. I can tell you I'm okay, but I can be sitting over here going through hell. Excuse my language. I'm not sure if this that type of platform. Um, but we need to really be checking in. So whether that's FaceTime, whether that's showing up at a friend's house, Bristol Monroe on here. When my best friend died, I had a lot of people coming to my house, and I did not want to be bothered. So there were a lot of unanswered phone calls, and this girl would just show up, and I'm like, Lord, who opened the door for her? But again, she's one of my best friends, and she knew what I was going through at that moment. So did have a lot of support. Another thing that I wanted to mention, Dr. Obed mentioned it earlier about therapy. I always recommend to go to a therapist. And this might be a little bit off topic, but when we talk about therapy and communicating and telling people what's going on, we got to get out the habit of telling our friends what's going on. And not that it's a bad thing, but sometimes our friends aren't necessarily equipped to deal with the information that we need to divulge to them. And I'm guilty of it. I mean, I talk to my friends about everything, but sometimes we really need to ask them, hey, before I say this, are you able to handle this right now? And if they say no, then you got to respect it. But more so, professionally getting the assistance that you need is very important as well.
Yep. I wanted to throw out real quick before you jump in there, DeMarcus. We're talking about people checking in on their officers. Supervisors checking in on their officers. I want to give a shout out to one of my commanders, Rachel Tober. I know Dr. Obed has worked with her on projects in the past and probably in the in the future and present as well. Back in 2020, when we were all working double shifts and all that because of George Floyd and all that happened and the civil unrest and all that. She actually came up to me. I don't know if she could sense it, with that duality of being black and blue. Us feeling what happened to George Floyd and all of our peers not really feeling that. But, this commander being even a white female, she did ask me, hey, Dale, are you okay? She's the only one that reached out, so I want to give a shout out to her. So
Rachel's good people. She's good people.
Yeah,
I'll make sure she gets that message too.
yeah. I think I've told, I work with her, so I've told her, but yeah, if she's watching her, you can relay that as well. So yeah. And again, Risa also says, Sergeant Taylor may or may not know this, but she has saved me during my depression. So shout out to you.
I love you, friend.
Jatara. Yeah.
Piggyback. When you're dealing like you said during the civil unrest, I was in our public information office at the time, and we used to go out, be out there in the middle of the protest doing the cease and desist whenever we got to that point. The commander there, and I never will forget. One of the protesters was cussing me out so bad when I got home. I had to go home and ask my mother what was my name because he called me everything except that. The only black officer on that part of the line. I got it. But I never will forget this young lady in the middle of all that called out, I said, Officer Black. And I looked and she waved and then they quit waving that officer, But I said to her, so I did something right. That young lady missed the middle of all that, took the time to speak to me. So and that was to the point that was just a low day for me. And that young lady doing that, just somebody just like you said, kind of reaching out, reassuring you a little bit, got you back on solid footing. Now, when you're bringing that up to everybody on this department, it's kind of hard to, not to ever think about quite a bit. Well, the incident happened here on 7/7 when we lost 4 Dallas officers and a Dart officer.
Yep.
Our wellness unit wasn't around. We had our peer support people together, but this department, anyone who was here, from dispatch to our volunteers who bought us out water and all that, you're affected by it. We are walking wounded from that, and so that's why how our peer support being ramped up, how it is, the wellness unit being built up like it is, and it's out in the forefront of mental health for officers, man. I'm telling you, everybody, just like you have the September 11th, anybody can tell you what they were doing. Everybody can tell you where they were on that day. And for that day, for me, it's a little bit. I mean, I was mad because I was at home. I've been out doing all these protests, and I had two young ladies that worked in my office were getting married, so they wanted to work to get the overtime, for their wedding. So I was sitting home in the bed, and I'm sitting here looking at I was to monitor social media was gonna be my part while I was at home. I'm tired because I've been working. I'm laying in the bed. I said a tweet come across, shots fired. I was like, what? I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. Disappeared. Or somebody must have deleted it. They're saying, shots fired, downtown Dallas. I'm like, what? Get a phone call from my supervisor. Hey, man, you need to suit up. We got 3 officers down. I was like, oh, man, what? Oh, yeah, okay, they made a mistake on this. It can't be. And I was even more mad when they told me I got to go to Baylor Hospital to help control the media. I wanted to go grab a rifle, go downtown and find a guy who did this. And I was really upset. But we all had a job to do. And the officers, the acts of bravery that they did and the stuff that those guys seen, my Sergeant Figueroa, that's over the wellness, supervisor in the wellness unit, man, he has a story to tell, Dale, if you ever want to have they have a story to tell, I'm telling you. And me being in PIO, when it was all over, it wasn't over. I had to document for the department every funeral. See the families. Everybody has their story. Everybody has their part of it. And so what I like about officers now, they're not afraid to say, hey, I need some help. I'm still dealing with this. I need some help. I'm still dealing with it. And people aren't afraid that I've been talking to admit that. And they'll tell you if they have a therapy, I'm going to see my therapist. That back in the day, that was never heard of.
Never.
And I'm so glad to see it changing as way it is, man. And I hope this wellness thing takes out across the country and all departments develop it and take hold to it because it's something needed. And in the end, it's you have better officers, you have better service to the citizens. So I don't understand why if there's any holdouts, why. I understand that.
All right, let me go to the comment wall real quick for a comment from a Vivi V on Facebook. She says, a lot of times when a depressed suicidal person seems okay, that's when he or she is more likely to follow through with the plan. Love that Lindsay mentioned the importance of checking and asking, how are you today? Absolutely. Yep. And then we've got also Diana Thornton says the effects of July 7th is still heavy and traumatic on our department. Many officers continue to take off on that day.
Yeah.
Yep. I can imagine. I can only imagine. So, us as police officers, we have to respond to these people in crisis as well. And sometimes these people in crises have these ideations of suicide, and they want us to be able to actually follow through for them. Suicide by cop. What are you guys' thoughts on that? I know some agencies now, even my agency in particular, say that if that person is the only one in danger, if we can confirm that, say like they're barricaded in the house by themselves and they're having thoughts of they want to commit suicide, and we think that there's a weapon involved. Sometimes some officers, some agencies won't even respond due to that liability or being the ones to be forced to pull that trigger. What do you guys think about that sort of thought process?
I personally, if a call like that were to come out, I don't mind that, the police showing up to at least do something at the lowest level possible, right?
Yeah.
So you might have an officer that might have to get the gap, or somebody who might be able to, talk somebody off the ledge, so to speak. And they may be able to bring that to a peaceful resolution. Now, as far as if we know the person's inside the house by themselves and they might be armed or whatever it is, I'm definitely not okay with the police kicking down the door to go inside to save the guy from himself. Because, again, to that liability standpoint, you obviously don't want any of your officers hurt and you don't want to escalate things, right? So in many of these cases, you hope that they sleep it off, especially if there's alcohol involved and all that kind of stuff. So I'm okay with police responding, or at least some form of response to at least maybe try to talk somebody down. But as far as like kicking out or taking some type of enforcement, to help someone from themselves, I'm not okay with that.
So
Here in Dallas, we go ahead, Bam. You go first. I'll wait.
Okay. What I was going to say is, so the oath that we took was to protect and serve. So whatever that looks like, your oath is to protect and serve. I feel like with the lack of education that some of these officers go into different situations with, as far as mental health, where we have people who are going to calls who are not certified, they don't have any type of training, any type of skills, any type of experience, and then you put them into these situations, and a lot of times the worst may happen. For me, I feel like if you get that call, sometimes that might be the last, like, that person has reached the last resort. Like they're like literally away from dying by suicide, and you are that last resort to them. They want somebody to be able to talk them down and tell them that everything is going to be okay and we're going to help you. I don't necessarily think that when these people are calling out that they're trying to die by suicide by cop. I'm thinking that maybe this is their last option. They've went through everything and they just can't seem to get it right. So as officers, I feel like you really need to be trained to deal with these things. I know in the past that people have said, well, we're not social workers. Well, technically you are. And you should want to be able to have those skills to be able to go down and to de-escalate a situation, and people can walk away safe and unharmed. The goal for me when I go to work, and again, we're court based, and then we have some units that are like on the streets. But my goal is to come home the same way that I came in. And that's going to be for the people that I come across as well. If there's anything I can do in between that time to make sure that they get the necessary resources, if they have to be involuntary committed to a hospital to get those resources, whatever that is, I'm going to try to do my best to ensure that we both get home safely.
Yep.
Yes, I know when we go to calls here in Dallas for person in mental health crisis. We have a certain signal for it, and we have in each division, which we have 7 divisions, we have a team called the Right Care Team. Didi, if you're still listening, give me the acronym for Right Care. I can't remember right now, but the Right Care Team consists of a clinician, a mental clinician, a firefighter, and a police officer. And we go and we try to render services to that person that may be in crisis. And every Dallas officer is trained in some type of formal training involving mental health, and also de-escalation. And tell me, we got there because we had our bumps and our bruises in some unfortunate situations where or someone was killed. And so we have learned from those things. And I think Right Care came into form. I think we started that. I think we've been going for about 4 years or so, maybe, or maybe one more than that. And we started out, I think, at 2 stations and it spread, and we got the funding to go through all stations. They'll meet up here at their station, and like I said, it's a fireman for any type of medical thing that you might need there, trained paramedic, mental clinician from a health service, which is part of Parkland, which is Dallas County Hospital District. And those calls come out. If those elements are available, they'll be dispatched to those calls. They're not, they'll dispatch another officer. And working in facilities management here, I did the past 2 years here, and I worked, which included the front desk. We had a lot of people who came in the front door that were in need of some type of help or treatment, for mental health issues. And because our headquarters is like right down the road from one of our most popular homeless shelters. A lot of people need help, and so we would call Right Care, and they would come in. They would interview them, see if they're off their meds, see other help they need, and then they had other resources they keep up with, and they follow up with that person for follow-up care. So the Right Care model here has been pretty effective here in Dallas, for it's helping us with citizens that's in need of mental health.
Yep. So Demarcus is Diana Thornton says Rapid Integrated Group Healthcare Team, Right Care Team on Dallas PD. So is that what you're talking about?
That's it.
Okay. Yep. All right. So go ahead.
I just wanted to say something real quick. I agree with what everyone was. Obviously, I haven't been on the road in quite some time, but I think what happens sometimes too is we rush when we get to a call, not realizing some calls are very dynamic and you have to jump in there. Like you got to throw your car in park, jump out and get after it. But there are other calls where we have time. And what I see, what I've seen throughout my career, is people rush to it. I'm like, what's the hurry? And I was very lucky to have a supervisor that I worked for who would, that's something he preached, is take your time. We have all of these resources. When we got to get out there and get after it, you will know. But if we have all these resources of communication, things that put distance between us and that situation, let's exhaust those before we jump in there and maybe push a situation that didn't have to even exist to begin with. So that's something we need to take note of as well, as having the education, because just like Tara was saying, I have seen people who have terrible communication skills show up on a call because they are tactically driven or all they think about is traffic stops, and they can't have a conversation to save their life. And I'm like, please move. Like I have actually physically gotten in between a suspect and corporal who's trying to his muscle rather than his words. And I'm like, absolutely not. The guy. And you came over here again and pumping your fists for what? For what? And you just route the situation out where we can just use our words sometimes to get that person to do the same thing, but with less paperwork and no injuries.
Wow. Sounds like something you got to tell your little kid, your little elementary school kid. Use your words. You know what I mean? Use your words.
It's true.
It's true. I know.
But you know what, Lindsay? Not only does it affect like the people you come in contact with on calls, being uneducated about mental health as it relates to law enforcement or just witnessing a traumatic event, any of those things, it can not only re-traumatize a person, and I'm gonna speak publicly about it today. So last year, it wasn't even a dream, it was a nightmare, right? I woke up, I saw these visions like vividly of my partner. And what people don't realize is you don't have to be there to physically witness something. It can be either directly or indirectly. So there's moments where there's always flashbacks of how I last see my partner. And I won't really get into details about that, but I remember having a nightmare and going to work. Probably I should have taken off. Typically, if I'm not doing too well, I'll take a mental health day. I always encourage people to use those days if you have to. And I remember going to work and just having a moment and really verbalizing that I'm having a moment. I just need some time. And the person that handled that situation completely wrong. Not only did it traumatize me, it was almost like I was being treated as a criminal. And again, it's so many people who want to jump in and help, but really they don't have the skills necessary to be able to help somebody, especially somebody who's simply saying, give me a second, I need a moment. So like you said, people rush to do things. And when you rush to do things, you create chaos. Chaos will definitely ensue after that. So I think that's really important. And like I said, just make sure you're knowledgeable. Like there's free trainings. You don't have to wait for the office to give you training. Go out and educate yourself before you try to assist someone and make the situation worse than what it is.
That part.
100%.
That part right there. Yep. So if you guys are looking down there, all the viewers are looking down there at the bottom of the screen, that crawl there. If you need help, the National Suicide Crisis Lifeline, as opposed to hotline, they call it. If you need help, they're open 24/7, 365. You can text now. Just text 988 and they'll respond that way, or you can call 1-800-273-8255. How can
I
some
like to say
organizations
something about
go ahead?
about the line real quick. I've actually done some work with them. And it's actually a really great resource. I know that question's coming, but it is a really great resource, and it is for everybody. It is for everybody, and you can get into
Everybody.
really good conversations and be able to offload in a safe space and just kind of get it out. Because, like I said earlier, people just want to be seen, heard. They want to be validated, and a lot of times that offers that for people who don't get that in their everyday life.
Absolutely. So what can organizations do, for their coworkers to kind of help them get through, or help their employees recognize people in, employees, their coworkers in mental crises? What can employers do on that front?
Well, I think one of the things we've all talked about, a few times is the education piece, is having the proper knowledge, you know, and reminding people that, when we, like Jataria was saying, you don't have to be in the mix or right there. You can have vicarious trauma. You can hear about something. You can be across the street when something happens. You don't have to get physically injured to take that day, right? And so when we have these reactions, can't sleep, hypervigilant, crying, anger, all of these things, we're actually having very normal reactions to an abnormal situation. And that, to me, that is a thing that has to start from the top down, because if your chief or your sheriff or whoever's the director over your organization, they're not talking about it, if they're not buying into it, it's not going to work. And the other thing is, people have to talk about the things that they've been through. If you've been in law enforcement long enough, you have bumps and bruises. If you've been a first responder, especially if you have rank, you have bumps and bruises. If you're walking around acting like you got to where you are as a chief or a sheriff or a director, and you ain't been divorced or had discipline and all this other stuff, you're not helping your people at all. You're not helping them at all, because it makes it seem like your life is so perfect. And if we're not talking about our struggles every day, and like I said earlier, we're humans who wear uniforms. So if we can provide, I'm huge on peer support. To me, I think peer support is a cradle to the grave situation, from when you recruiting people and even after retirement, some too, because that's when people get in trouble too mentally, was when you have that loss of identity, and we have to be open. I love telling people I see a therapist. I tell people, if you not, we need to talk about it, because you can't you can't do this job for 20, 30 plus years with some people and act like you don't have nothing. Baby, you in denial if that.